from San Jose, California. His work appears in the Under Review, the Michigan Quarterly Review, Wig-Wag, the Masters Review, the Chicago Review of Books, the 2024 Driftwood Anthology, the Adroit Journal, and elsewhere. He's a graduate of Gonzaga University and earned his MFA from Arizona State University. He currently lives, writes, and teaches in Philadelphia, PA, and is eternally heartbroken about the A's leaving Oakland. I'm gonna turn it over to him now and let him take it away.
Right on. Hello. Can everybody hear me? Is it working? Zoom's cooperating. We love it. All right. Mo, thank you for the introduction. It's weird hearing all that like read by someone else because normally I'm just like writing it alone and I'm like, oh. So that was fun. Cool. Well, hello everybody. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for Blue Stoop for like making this possible. Thanks Mo for volunteering. Thank you Julian and Taylor for everything you do behind the scenes at Blue Stoop. It's incredible. I'm like beyond stoked to be here. I'm super happy. Okay, so as Mo mentioned, I'm setting a little timer. Mo mentioned, today we're going to be talking about characters at play. The way that this is sort of set up, I have like a lecture of sorts that should take about like 25-ish minutes. And then I have a writing prompt, and I figure we would all maybe kind of like take whatever we want from what I have to say, and then we can all write stuff. And then if people want to share, we can share, or if people just want to like discuss takeaways or like other authors or writers who they see doing similar work, like I figured we could just sort of have a roundtable discussion. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. Before that, though, I have a link that I'm going to share in the chat, and this should take everybody to a PDF document. And it should be shareable. So I'd love it if maybe I could get some like thumbs up if people can access it. Yes, excellent. So these are just the excerpts that I'm going to be sort of using. I do have slides that I'm going to share in just a sec, but really text heavy slides can be like a lot, right? So if you don't want to look at the slides and you just want to look at the excerpts, that totally works. Okay. So let me go ahead and start the slideshow and we'll get going. So, when my computer loads, excellent. Can everybody see the slides? Yes, love it. So characters at play. That's the short title. The long title is using games, competitions, and make-believe to write dynamic scenes. All right. And I figured a good place to start is just thinking about like what play is, what play means, right? I like sports. I'm a sports person. So to me, when I think play, I do often think of sports, but I know that that's not everybody's cup of tea, right? And so I wanted to kind of expand what we think of when we think about play, right? Both as a verb and a noun. So we have sports up here. We also have just like to toy or fiddle around with something, right? Somebody playing with their food, somebody engaging or taking part in a game of sorts, assenting to some activity, to perform or execute for amusement, or to deceive or mock, right? Like if you play a trick on somebody. This one's fun, to have promiscuous or illicit sexual relations, usually in the phrase playing around, a little scandalous, right? So then we also have nouns, right? We have like the stage representation of a story, right? Like a play that you would go and see. Any kind of recreational activity, the spontaneous activity of children, for instance, right? Kids who like play make-believe. We'll see some examples of that later. Or even something more like local, right? Like a person's turn in a game, something a little more immediate. So I just want us all to sort of like keep this in mind as we kind of look at examples and as you think about how this might be useful in your own writing and in your own practice, because play is really broad, right? And I want us to all keep that in mind. So think about kind of what play means to you and where you could see it maybe being a part of your practice, your work, right? Other thing, scenes in fiction, in poetry, film, fiction, nonfiction, right? I think there's some like general purposes that they can accomplish. This is not a like exhaustive list. This is also not like backed up by like whoever, like whatever experts exist. This is just some things that I thought of, right? And craft is subjective, and so you can sort of take and leave what you want. But a thing that I think scenes often do is they develop and change characters, right? A lot of the times two characters will go into a scene and emerge differently than how they came out. It might be because new information has been revealed to them. It might be because a conflict that has been bothering them has been resolved, or a new conflict has been introduced, right? I also think that sometimes what comes along with that is the advancement of a plot, right? We create momentum, we sort of move forward, right? But something I think is really important to scenes, or at least to me, is that they engage the audience, right? They should be kind of a moment where the audience feels really into the writing, and can sort of picture what is going on and wants to know maybe what happens next, right? They have some sort of investment, okay? So with all of this in mind, I want to start by watching a scene from the movie Crazy Rich Asians, which I love this movie. For those of you who haven't seen it, this actress is Constance Wu. She's playing Rachel. She is in a relationship with Nick. Nick comes from like a very wealthy family, and Constance Wu is about to meet with Michelle Yeoh, who plays Eleanor, Nick's mother, and they're about to kind of like have it out about their potential engagement. Okay, so as we watch this scene, think about how they're using play to move the scene forward, how they're using it to shift power dynamics, and just anything else that you kind of observe. Okay, the sound worked in practice, so hopefully.
There is a Hokkien phrase, kakilang. It means our own kind of people. And you're not our own kind.
Because I'm not rich? Because I didn't go to a British boarding school, or I wasn't born into a wealthy family?
You're a foreigner, American. And all Americans think about is their own happiness.
Don't you want Nick to be happy?
It's an illusion. We understand how to build things that last. Something you know nothing about.
You don't know me.
I know you're not what Nick needs.
Well, he proposed to me yesterday. He said he'd walk away from his family and from you for good. Don't worry, I turned him down.
Only a fool folds a winning hand.
There's no winning. You made sure of that. Because if Nick chose me, he would lose his family. And if he chose his family, he might spend the rest of his life resenting you.
So you chose for him?
I'm not leaving because I'm scared. Or because I think I'm not enough. Because maybe for the first time in my life, I know I am. I just love Nick so much. I don't want him to lose his mom again. So I just wanted you to know that one day, when he marries another lucky girl who is enough for you, and you're playing with your grandkids while the tanhuas are blooming and the birds are chirping, that it was because of me. A poor, raised by a single mother, low-class immigrant. Nobody.
Gorgeous. So I love that scene for a lot of reasons. But I think it does a really nice job of kind of demonstrating why there might be some benefits of structuring scenes around play, right? Like we can see how like as they're playing mahjong, the conversation is shifting, it creates a pattern, it creates a rhythm, their power dynamics shift from the beginning to the end, it advances the plot, like it's doing all of this awesome work. And again, this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are 4 things that I think that scene does, and other scenes that we'll take a look at in a minute do, that are structured around play or games or sport or competition, right? First, it creates lower order goals for your character. All right. And what I mean by lower order goals, and we'll get more into this later, is the idea that they have something immediate that they have to do or accomplish, right? It gives them something in the short term to kind of advance at. Okay. Second thing, it creates structure through pattern and expectation, right? Games have rules. When you're playing with your friends, usually you'll fall into some sort of rhythm and you can expect certain people to do other things. That's a powerful building block for scenes. Okay. 3, it shifts power dynamics. And this is something I've brought up several times. And I think it's kind of self-evident in the scene we just watched, and also just shifting power dynamics. We understand that there's like a movement. But something else I really want to bring up is that I know that not everybody writes in a way that wants to prioritize power, or people having power, or characters having power over each other. And I think play can also offer really neat opportunities to level the playing field. And so we'll see some examples of that as well. Okay. And then finally, it combines exterior and interior realities. And that like sounds complicated, and I'm sure there's a better way to put this. But what I mean by that is, when your characters are playing at something, whether it's a game or a sport, there's a lot happening around them in the physical world, right? Other characters are doing things. The setting is changing. Your characters are moving and making decisions with their bodies. But then at the same time, they're thinking through all of those decisions. They are registering what's happening and then processing it and interpreting it. And that creates really interesting tension. And that creates really interesting opportunities for maybe, what's happening in real life versus what's happening in their mind. And it can create sort of neat dichotomies, right? So what I figured we'd do is we would just kind of break these down over the next 10, 15 minutes or so. And so we'll start with lower order goals. This is from the book Thrill Me by Benjamin Percy. It's a craft book. I like it. I like it a lot. He has this to say. He says, kill the whale, stop the killer, save the world from the doomsday asteroid, travel to Mordor, to Mount Doom, to hurl the ring of power into the fiery chasm from whence it came. These are higher order goals, right? Those are the things that are going to propel your like larger plot. They're kind of, if people were going to summarize, like, what is this story about? What's this poem about? It's the about. Right? Whereas lower order goals are the things that drive your individual scenes, right? They're what's happening more locally and more immediately to your characters, right? And so Benjamin Percy says, lower order goals drive your scenes. Stacy needs to get to the store to buy beer for the graduation party. Johnny needs to sneak out of his parents' house one night to meet up with a girl. Sam needs to hammer plywood over the windows before the hurricane arrives, right? So it's these immediate things that have to happen. And so I figured, like, what might be nice is we can look at an example from this book, Now Is Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. I don't know if anybody's read it, but it's a fun book. And this is actually the opening chapter. Like, this is the opening line. It's completely based around a game, around play, and it kind of drives the whole chapter and the whole scene forward. So this is the longest excerpt that we have. The rest are kind of poems and flash pieces, but this one takes a minute. Would anybody like to volunteer to read? Because I can only hear myself talk for so long before I need a break. This is what it looks like.
I'll read.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, George.
Sure thing. Now's Not the Time to Panic by Kevin Wilson. At the Coalfield public pool, they would blow a whistle, and everybody had to get out of the water. And we'd all stand there, hopping on one foot and then the other, because the concrete was so damn hot, burning the bottoms of our feet. And some lifeguard, barely older than I was, 16, looking like the bad guy in a teen movie, blonde and buff and absolutely never going to save you if you were drowning, would wheel out a greased watermelon. There was a 3-inch layer of Vaseline, which made the watermelon shiny, almost like it was turning from a solid into a liquid. And the lifeguard and one of his evil twins, maybe with crazier muscles and a scuzzy mustache, would dump this watermelon into the water and then push it to the middle of the pool. And when they blew their whistles, the point was to jump into the water, and then whoever could get the watermelon to the edge of the pool would win it.
Oh, and then Jules, would you mind keep going? I might have tricked you.
Sure.
If you It's okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no big deal.
Okay.
I used to be a teacher, so I'm calling on people to volunteer. I'm happy to pay it forward for all the times I
Yeah, thank you.
called on people. So the whistle blew, and we were just staring at each other. But then he said, "Come on, we can do this." And he jumped right into the pool. I did not jump into the pool. I just stood there. I smirked, watched him bob and watched him bob in the water. And he looked so hurt. Made me feel really shitty. Finally, he shrugged and started splashing toward the commotion, toward that roiling mass of teenage boys, all fighting over something so stupid for fun. Zeke tried 2 or 3 times, but he kept getting roughly tossed aside, dunked under the water, and he'd come up gasping, coughing, looking so lost out there on his own. But he kept climbing over people, trying to get his hands on the watermelon, which was so slippery that no one could really control it. And then somebody kicked him accidentally in the mouth, and I saw that his lip was busted. It was bleeding, dripping into the pool, but the lifeguards did not give a shit. I don't think they were even watching. And Zeke just jumped back into the crowd, and I started to get worried. I knew something bad could happen to someone this clueless.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jules. That was a great reading voice. Excellent. Right on. So there's a second part to this that I'll get to in a minute, but I just want to pause us here for a minute because we can already see that there is like a lower order goal, right? And it's kind of a silly goal. Like in real life, you're like, why do you want to get the watermelon? But in terms of like its purpose in the story, it's doing so much, right? It's forcing 2 characters who, for context, they've never met, forcing them into a relation, forcing them to make choices, and forcing them to either decide to work together or not to accomplish this common thing, right? And so we get a lot of character growth, we get some plot advancement while they're chasing a watermelon, right? Which is kind of random. The scene ends with this, and you know the narrator goes and gets her brothers and is like, "Go help my new friend." And my brothers dropped all the stuff they were carrying and ran to the edge of the pool, cannonballing into the water. Andrew grabbed Zeke like a rag doll and basically carried him toward the watermelon, while Brian and Charlie cleared a path using their elbows, the ferocity of their actions overwhelming the other kids, who had been wrestling over the watermelon for long enough that they were starting to tire out. When they got possession of the watermelon, a sorry-looking sight, Andrew threw Zeke onto it, and the triplets pushed into the edge of the water, Zeke's mouth dripping blood onto the Vaseline. And then it was over. Zeke had won, right? So I kind of like set this last paragraph apart because it also shows us that this scene has a built-in timer, right? They have a goal that they have to accomplish, and once it has been accomplished, it's easy to end that scene and to move on to something else, right? For context, this is the end of the first chapter, right? And so that whole like kind of large chunk of text, I think the first chapter is maybe, let's check. Yeah. It is 13 pages, right, of just them doing this one thing, right? And so it gives you a lot to work with, right, which I really appreciate. Jules, thanks again. Awesome. So the next thing, and I've kind of like worked into this with the idea of having a timer, a clear end goal, is that play offers structure through pattern and expectation. This is taken from Peter Turchi, who wrote a really neat craft book called A Muse in a Maze that's kind of like about puzzles, which I'm a nerd, so I like it. He writes, having something occur twice illustrates either simple repetition or contrast. Having something happen 3 times creates a pattern. Pattern creates anticipation. Repetition creates anticipation, but surprise creates uncertainty, right? And I love this because I think as writers, a lot of us might be familiar with that idea of the rule of 3s, right? Like you want to present things in 3s, it becomes more memorable, it's like significant. But what's interesting is when you start to repeat something enough, if you break that pattern, it adds neat tension to whatever you're writing, right? In games and playing and sports and competitions, they have these built-in patterns, right? In tennis, 2 people hitting a ball back and forth. In basketball, there's like that shot clock, and there's typically a movement of the ball around the court, right? In what else? Even when kids are playing make-believe, right? They usually come up with some sort of rules or parameters, right? So I think that this is helpful. So the next example is from this book, Chlorine Sky by Mahogany L. Brown. It is a young adult novel written in poems. So it's a pretty neat read. Can I get maybe another volunteer to read this? And this one has 2 sides as well.
I could read it.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff.
My sister, Essa, is the smart one. I shoot, swish, but she also lies so much. I think it's her favorite song. I shoot, swish. She lies so much she never know when the truth sneaks up. I shoot. She lies so much it sound like a history lesson. Miss. She lies so much she'll make you believe rain is a color coming out the sky. I shoot. And when she lies like she do, I still think she makes rainbows, miss, because no one forgets her name. I shoot. Backboard bounce, swish. Everywhere she goes, they laugh at all her jokes. Everywhere she goes, they call her brilliant. Everywhere she goes, they also call her slick talker. I shoot, miss, shoot bricks. Essa lies so much she never knows when the truth sneaks up and smack her in the mouth. Shoot, swish. That's what our Grandma Maxie say. And I think it's hilarious. I laugh and laugh and laugh with all my teeth showing. Shoot, swish. Except Grandma Maxie don't play that kids laughing at grown folks jokes. So, shoot my shot. I grin real big with my lips shut tight. Swish.
So good. Jeff, are you a poet?
I'm trying to be.
You're killing it. You're doing so well. Oh my God. Great reading. Wonderful. Thank you. Right on. So I really I love this poem for a lot of reasons, but I included it specifically with this this idea of repetition and pattern, because this poem is so reliant on repetition, both in its language, right? Like here on the second side, everywhere she goes, everywhere she goes, everywhere she goes. So we have Mahogany L. Browne creating repetition through the language she's using, but there's also this incredible pattern and repetition through basketball, right? Through the getting of the ball and the shooting it. I shoot, swish, I shoot, swish. And so we have this pattern, and then she breaks it. And then we get something new, right? So this poem is constantly using pattern and repetition through basketball to create surprise, right? And to draw us through it, which I just think is incredible. So Jeff, thank you for reading. And thank you, Mahogany L. Browne, for writing this. Next thing that I think this can do that's really interesting is shift power dynamics, right? Victoria Jackson is a professor at ASU, Arizona State, and she gave this really wonderful lecture, and this is something she said. And it said, "I believe deeply in the power of sport to help people find their power and spark transformation in communities. A shy person may be able to do incredibly brave, vulnerable, risky things in a sporting place," right? And I like this a lot because it highlights how people might be able to act as a version of themselves that they're not able to act in other spaces, or it might enable them to kind of overcome an obstacle in their life that has been keeping them out of a position of power, okay? And I also think it does a really interesting thing, or we'll see this in a later example, but it also creates opportunities for power to become balanced, okay? So this excerpt, which I think is a good example of kind of a shift using play, is from a chapbook, Maybe This Is What I Deserve, by Tucker Lady Phillips. This is a wonderful chapbook from Split Lip Press. And this story does a really cool thing with power, because we'll see in a minute, the children kind of share power throughout the scene, but then at the end, there's quite a sudden shift, right? Both in their dynamics, but also in the general atmosphere of the story. So I'll read this one just for time. The children are standing very still so as not to upset the aliens. If the aliens see them move, if they turn to watch the children as they advance the footpath or climb the steps to their back porch, it's all over. They must start again. They must be careful. They do not want their game to end. There are nearly a dozen aliens, many taken in as strays, found abandoned in cardboard boxes outside of parking lots, nurtured runts from previous litters. The easiest alien to sneak past is Boots, who sleeps through most of the day, curled in one of the large outdoor planters. Purcell is the most difficult to fool, as she patrols constantly and has a tendency to chase birds, other aliens, the children. But today, the children are standing very still. They are tiptoeing the new terrain, silently recording data, taking soil samples from the backyard as they keep a close eye on their oxygen levels. The children track each of the aliens, noting when they laze on the cold stone porch, nestled between the curtain and the window, defecate in the tall grass of the yard. Perhaps a religious ritual, one notes. When threatened, the children stand very still. They do not want their game to end. They sketch drawings of new specimens, bring them to home base for further study. When an alien crosses their path and lays in the driveway, gathering sunlight on its alien skin, they slip over the side railing. They are careful. They are learning. They do not want their game to end. When an alien enters the garage while the children refuel, they hold their breath and wait for it to slink off. They are careful. They are learning. They do not want their game to end. When their father comes home, slamming the door behind him as he bellows, sending the aliens scattering across the house and yard, the children slip out the back door. They stand very still. They wait for the sound of the television, for the moment to pass, to slip out into the magic hour. They are careful. They are learning. They do not want their game to end. Right. So again, that's Tucker Lady Phillips. Maybe this is what I deserve. But I love this story as an example because we have this kind of even power dynamic throughout the first maybe 3 quarters, right? Where the kids are all kind of cooperating. They have this autonomy in the game they're playing. They're watching cats, pretending they're aliens. It's like so fun. And then we learn that all of this is kind of a form of escapism for them, right? In their home when their father comes home. And we learn that they are not nearly in charge of their lives and their fates as they think they are, right? But they continue to play this game in order to have that feeling. I also think this is another really good example of like repetition and patterns, right? They stand very still. They do not want the game to end, right? Okay, and then another kind of example of like shifting power is this poem, I Just Want to Hoop, again by Mahogany L. Browne from that same book, Chlorine Sky. Can I have somebody read this, please? We'll just start, go down, and then move over.
I can read it.
Oh, thanks, Cassie. Hey.
Yeah. I want to do something that ain't got nothing to do with being a girl. I want to do something that don't give folks a right to tell me to sit quiet or be still or play small. I don't want to play small. I think of Lali, how mighty her mouth is, how she walks in and the room goes silent, how she is like a boss. But now I realize she ain't the boss. Now I realize it's all a trick. Now I realize being a girl is heavy business. It's like a basketball game with no referee, just 2 teams and everybody play by their own rules. People only care about winning. You have to mind the ball or the gravity, but people only care about winning. They don't care who they take from. They don't care about how foul they be. So you pivot and protect yourself until something or someone else comes for you and they foul and double dribble and challenge you like a bully. But when you do it back, they call you a bad sport.
Excellent. Awesome. Thanks, Cassie. It's great to see you. So cool. All right. So again, this is another, I think, example of how we see kind of power moving in and out of focus through play, right? At the beginning, the narrator kind of has this moment where she's like, this is what I want to do to kind of like have this agency over myself. And then we kind of see by the end, it's not totally allowed. And it's another obstacle to overcome, right? So this kind of takes us to our last point, and then I swear we'll get to writing prompts. The idea of interior and exterior realities, right? So again, from that lecture by Dr. Victoria Jackson, we have, really these are prompts. Like you could use this as a writing prompt, it'd be so good. What games did you play? Recess games, neighborhood games, imagination games, alone or with friends? Where are you? The playground, the park, the woods, neighborhood streets, a lake or pool? And then we shift into more emotional, more in your mind. What were the feelings, the range of emotions? How did your body feel? How did you feel in your body, right? And so I love these questions because they offer us a lot to work with as writers, right? Where we can write the physical world, but then we also have to kind of embody our characters and think about how they're interacting with that world, right? And so there's 2 final examples, and then we'll kind of get to prompts. Another one is, again, from Tucker Lady Phillips's book. And again, I'll read this one for time and then maybe have somebody read the final example. This is down the tunnel, up the slide. This is how it begins. Your father grants 5 minutes in the play place while he orders 2 hamburgers. You bolt through the door and into the glass room, slip your shoes into the cubby, gaze at the colorful, massive structure towering over you. Up the tunnel ladder you climb, latching onto each rubber rung, dawdling on all fours, fully feral. You rush through each section and subsection, burrowing deeper into the fluorescent caverns. In this place, you are an explorer. In this place, you are an escapee. You rush through a tube, crawling opposite another child heading your direction. You squeeze past one another, giggling all the while. There is optimism here. You are but two cells in this rich, brilliant network. From a window on one side, you overlook the parking lot where cars pull in and out from the highway, unknowingly surveilled. On the other, you look into the restaurant where your father is holding an unraveled burger wrapper, bun splayed in two parts, open face and open face, and shows it to a manager. He has found a stray hair, perhaps a fly. Your father is always finding hair and flies. You, however, have slipped into the heart of the edifice, out of the dense tunnels into a large room, round, saucer-like, a view of every angle. This is where the children have gathered. You wonder if their parents are finding flies in their burgers too. One boy hunches as the others stand. Soon he will outgrow this sanctuary. You scan the congregation, this small squirm parade. Into a ball pit you celebrate, dip your hands into the pile, run your fingers across the lining in search of coins, artifacts. This is what your brother taught you. You find something, a dum-dum sucker, an explosive shade of blue. It is dry and packed with dehydrated flavor. You pop the sucker into your mouth, let the artificial berry dissolve, steep your saliva with its richness. Some other child's loss. You drop the sucker back among the balls, let it slip into the pit for another to find, your small camaraderie. This is how it ends. Your father knocks on the glass. You whisk down a slide and grab your shoes, return to two legs. The blue still purrs on your tongue. Right? And I love this story for this example, right? This idea of interior and exterior realities, because this story almost goes beat by beat, explaining the setting and what the you, right, the kind of second person narrator is doing in that setting, and then what they are thinking, right? And then I also think that this is really a prime example of how play can be used to kind of create an even power dynamic, right? All the kids in this play place are sort of equal. They are playing together and there's no real hierarchy here. And I think that that's really interesting and worth noting. Okay, and so then one last example, and then we'll kind of go back to the Crazy Rich Asians scene and then move into writing prompts. Would somebody mind reading this last poem? It's quite short.
I can read it.
Thank you.
I put all my energy into dribbling clean. I put all my energy into passing the ball. Dre and I against the world. Today, the world is Tyrone and some lower classmen with height who smell bad. I try not to think about what Laylee told me. I try not to think how I went looking for Clifton, ready to fight. I try to focus on dribbling clean. I try to focus on anything but the dull pain in my chest. I try to focus on my feet not being stuck to the concrete. I raise my hands with the ball lifted off the ground, peep Dre's position, and pass him the rock.
Thank you so much, Mattia. Thank you. It was awesome.
Thank you.
Right on. And so I think that this also kind of through poetry lens does really similar work, right? We have the narrator kind of doing this physical thing, dribbling the ball, passing the ball, trying to dribble clean, trying to like distract herself. But she's unable to, right? Because of what's going on in her mind, right? And we have this kind of interesting conflict between what she's doing physically and what she's struggling with emotionally, right? And so I think that, again, kind of structuring scenes around these kinds of moments or around these kind of activities can get us to this point, right? Where we have this really engaging kind of, I guess, conflict, what he said. All right, so these are just some final thoughts that I have about kind of like sports and game and play, and then I want to open it up to a writing prompt. Tori Jackson says sport, and I'll move that to play, right? I'll move that to our larger definition. Sport is the space for imagining new ways of being, for tapping into a broader range of emotions and behaviors, for testing our limits, for pushing with teammates, for trying hard and failing hard. Okay. And I think this leads well into the next line from Peter Turchi, who says a great deal of fiction, and we'll move this to prose, we'll move this to nonfiction, we'll expand that, is about the tension between who a character is and who he wants to be, between who he is and who he believes himself to be, or about a character in transition, right? And so I like these two quotes to kind of round things out, because I do think that play is a way for characters to experience new things. It's a way for them to try their hardest at changing or reaching the goal that they're ultimately trying to reach at a smaller level, right? At a smaller level of stakes, which I think can, again, drive really interesting scenes, right? So initially we were gonna, oh yeah, I guess this is the recap, right? Play creates lower order goals for characters. It can create structure through pattern and expectation. It can shift power dynamics. It can sort of combine the physical and emotional realities of the character. Initially, we were going to watch this scene again, but I actually just want to get us to writing. I want all of you to have an opportunity to like take whatever you want from this and put it to your own work. So maybe for like 10 or so minutes, try your best at this. I know 10 minutes isn't a ton of time, but this is a prompt you can take with you. Write a scene in which two characters are at play and in which the power dynamics of the characters changes from the beginning of the scene to the end. Right? The challenge is to make the outcome of the game the opposite of the new power dynamic. Right? For example, a man wins a chess match against his fiance, but during the match learns she is leaving him for his brother. Right? It's a rough day for him. So feel free to like do whatever you want with this prompt. You don't have to follow it at all. If there's something else that's speaking to you, please. But I think that these are all kind of nice questions to ask to maybe get started. What is your favorite game or sport or hobby? What about when you were younger, right? Is there anything that you used to do that you don't do anymore? How can you balance dialogue or speech with action in your writing? How can the lower order goal stand in for what your characters aren't saying or provide a buffer between what they are saying? And then finally, what is going on externally in the setting, in the game, or whatever they're playing, in your character's body? And then how can it contrast or complement what they're thinking? Right? I think these are nice food for thought. So Mo, we're still good on time, right? We have about 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're good.
Good. All right.
Technically 18 minutes.
Sorry?
Technically 18 minutes.
Incredible. So let's 10 minutes. Everybody kind of write whatever they can. Don't worry, don't make it gorgeous, don't make it perfect, just like do whatever you want. And then if anybody wants to share and be really brave, awesome. If not, we can all just sort of chat. And if people have questions or just want to share authors they like or whatever, we'll do that. But yeah, let's take 10. We'll all kind of write together for a little bit. Everyone, just like a heads up, still good, but maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll see if folks want to share or talk or have questions. So take a few more minutes. All right. Okay. Excellent. So I don't know, I hope this prompt was fun. I hope this was like enjoyable. I hope that maybe you were able to like latch on to something from the examples we looked at or the concepts, and maybe like apply it. Is anybody feeling like especially brave? It is okay if not, because this is fresh and you know, it's not everyone's vibe.
I can share a little bit, but it's very rough.
Yes, Cassie. Oh my God. Yes, Cassie, you're the best. Go for it. Thank you.
All right. You're doing it wrong, Sarah says, a common occurrence these days. Doing what wrong? Jack knows what she means, of course. His big sister never falters in her intentions, not since she turned 12. He didn't sound like that. Sarah's voice is like their mother's when Jack tries to speak with authority on anything he learns in history class, because she knows more, knows better. How would you know? Jack is aware that this comment will earn him a 5-star to the upper arm, but he says it anyway. He needed to, because Sarah believes that she knows their father better than he does, and that's not possible. For one, she's a girl, and two, she was only 2 when he died. Sarah knows what he sounds like as much as she knows what Martians do. As expected, Sarah's palm lands against Jack's arm with a smack. She regrets it, but maybe only because Jack is wearing a tank top and their mom might see the mark. Jack hopes she will. It would serve Sarah right. You know what? I don't want to play with you anymore. Not this game. Sarah turns around and walks towards the house. Wait, he calls out. Come on. I'll say what you think he would. But she doesn't turn around. She doesn't look back. Not even when Jack calls her Sunny. A touch too far, maybe. Dad's nickname for her. just for her.
That was so great. Oh my gosh. You're over here like it's rough and it's like this beautiful thing. Oh my God. There's a lot I liked about that, and I'm just gonna like love up on it real quick. I like how like from the very first line you established a routine, right? Like that line, like you're doing it wrong. It implies they've done it so many times. And I think that's like such a good move. Thanks, Cassie. That was great. It's like great to see you again. Anybody else feeling brave, feeling like sharing? Or just like have any other like thoughts, questions, concerns that you're just like interested in sharing?
I really like the aspects of like touching up power dynamic, and also I don't know if anyone was thinking about this, but like when like during like some of the discussions about like that you were proposing, I really thought about like that first scene in Yellow Jackets where like they play the game, and then like the one character's like, if you've seen Yellow Jackets, you know the one character doesn't go on the plane because of horrible injury, and like just like how that scene almost spells out like the rest of the show and like sets the stakes like for like all of the different dynamics just within like that scene of like the characters interacting. And so yeah, I definitely think there's so many ways to kind of establish character even within a game and like establish like the characters' relationship to each other.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't seen Yellow Jackets, but now I want to. I'm gonna go check it out. Anybody else like maybe have other examples they want to share, just like things they've seen that they were maybe thinking about through all this? Books, authors.
There are a couple of comments in the chat.
Oh, there's comments in the chat. So nothing. Oh my gosh. This one about the like guys playing basketball and like this is great. Good. I'm glad it was helpful. Oh, and then I'm reading Rob Neats. Oh my gosh. Ravneet, I like this beginning one of yours. I don't know if you're feeling up for speaking to it, but I think you're doing a lot of really good like setup into what is going to come with this character. It's really cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's completely about play, but then I thought, crossword could be play. And the idea is like they get a mail in crossword, like the start of every month, maybe there's a club or a group around it, and they're contenders for it. And then I could use words, like really specific niche words that maybe are used more in crossword than in real life, but also like use those to elaborate what's going on in the story itself.
That's
So like the whole plot.
I love that idea. And I also just, if you're interested, there's I'll put this in the chat. There's an author and her name is Vanita Blackburn, and she has some stories that like they like literally are crosswords that like the reader fills out and it becomes a story. So if like you're interested in that kind of puzzle stuff, she's like a wonderful person maybe.
Yeah, I would love to have that
Yeah,
link.
I'll throw it in the chat. Oh, she's awesome. Cool. Well, I think that's about time, isn't it, Mo? Like don't y'all have an announcement? All right. Well, I'll hand it back. But thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to those of you who shared. And I hope this was helpful and generative for all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Colin. And thank you to all of you for participating. I'm gonna put a few links in the chat here. And as all of you know, this was a free session today, but if you would like to support Blue Stoop, you can make a donation. I have the link behind me, but I think it is backwards, but it says bluestoop.org/donate. If that's possible for you today. What would also be very helpful is if you could fill out a quick feedback survey, which is one of the links that I put in the chat, which is really helpful because it helps Blue Stoop apply for grants, and it gives us kind of all the information we need to be able to tell the people with the grant money what we use it for. And if you'd like to attend more events like this one today, you can check out the events page on the Blue Stoop website or subscribe to our weekly newsletter. And we'll be here again next Thursday and would love to see you there. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.